The dreary, gray sky hung heavy over the small college town in East Texas, casting the rain-slicked streets in a melancholic sheen. Walking along the sidewalk, Matthew Sullivan, 22, clutched the strap of the backpack slung over his shoulder, his face a mask of worry. He was in his final year of law school, a precarious balancing act of a part-time job and the crushing weight of medical debts his late father had left behind. Every day, he felt the world closing in on him. Suddenly, his phone vibrated in his pocket, jolting him from his thoughts. "Matthew Sullivan," he answered. A calm, authoritative female voice responded, "Mr. Sullivan, this is Eleanor Vance. We need to discuss your financial situation." Startled, Matthew replied, "I'm sorry. Who is this? How do you know about?" "I know what I need to know," the woman cut in. "Meet me at the Willow Creek Bistro at 7 p.m. It is imperative that we speak." The line went dead before he could protest. Confused but intrigued, he made his way to the upscale bistro she had named. As he approached, the rain intensified, his thin jacket offering little protection. Stepping inside, he was met by a wave of warmth and the rich aroma of brewing coffee. At a quiet corner table sat Eleanor Vance, an elegant, impeccably dressed woman with silver hair who appeared to be in her late 60s. She wore a tailored suit that whispered of wealth. "Matthew," she called, beckoning him to sit. Her voice was serene, yet commanded attention. Matthew immediately sat across from her. "Mrs. Vance, what is this about?" "Straight to the point." "I like that," she said, taking a sip of tea. "Matthew, I am aware of the debts your father left you, and I see the strain you are under. I have a proposal for you." Matthew's brow furrowed. What kind of proposal? Eleanor set down her teacup and met his gaze with unnerving seriousness. "You will marry me," she stated plainly, the words hanging in the air between them. Matthew's eyes widened in disbelief. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me correctly," she continued, her tone unyielding. "This is not about love. It is a transactional arrangement. I will pay off all your debts. I will secure your future. All you must do is become my husband." A bewildered laugh escaped Matthew. "Are you serious? Why me? You don't even know me." Eleanor leaned forward slightly, her gaze sharp. "Precisely. You are young, unattached, and desperate enough to consider my offer. I am not looking for romance, Matthew. I require a partner, someone to carry my name, to be the steward of my estate, and who will ask for nothing more. Think of it as a contract." Matthew shook his head, his mind reeling. "I don't understand. What do you get out of this?" For the first time, Eleanor's expression softened into something resembling melancholy. "I have been alone my entire life, Matthew. No children, no remaining family. I am looking for companionship, even if only in form, and I wish to put my legacy in order. A husband solidifies all of that." Matthew stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I need time to think about this." "Understood," Eleanor replied calmly. "But do not take too long. This offer has an expiration date." As Matthew walked home, soaked by the relentless rain, he remained in a state of shock. That evening, he explained the situation to his mother at their small kitchen table. Her face was etched with worry. The weight of her own medical expenses and his younger sister's upcoming college tuition was a heavy burden on their family. "Matthew," his mother whispered after hearing Eleanor's offer, her voice faint. "It sounds unbelievable, but if she is offering a way out, perhaps you should consider it." Matthew stared down at his hands, struggling to reconcile his pride with their desperate reality. "You mean I should marry someone I don't love just to solve our problems?" "I mean, you should save yourself," his mother replied, her voice trembling. "And us." The next day, Matthew met Eleanor at the bistro again. As always, her presence was calm and resolute. "Have you made a decision?" she asked, not looking up from the tablet in her hands. Matthew took a deep breath. "I'll do it." A faint, satisfied smile touched Eleanor's lips as she set the tablet down. "Excellent. I will arrange everything immediately." A week later, Matthew stood in a small county courthouse, wearing a suit Eleanor had provided. The ceremony was brief, attended only by Eleanor's lawyer and a justice of the peace. As they exchanged vows, Matthew felt a strange sense of detachment. When they were pronounced husband and wife, Eleanor's smile was polite but cold. "Welcome to your new life, Mr. Vance." Stepping out of the courthouse into a light drizzle, Matthew saw his reflection in a puddle on the pavement. He wondered if he had just saved his family or sold his soul. Upon arriving at Eleanor Vance's mansion, he was stunned by its grandeur. It was a sprawling Gothic revival estate that felt less like a home and more like a museum, with its imposing stone columns and perfectly manicured grounds. Yet, a sense of lonely silence seemed to emanate from its dark windows. As he stepped out of the taxi with his single suitcase, he felt like he had entered a strange dream, or perhaps a nightmare. Eleanor greeted him in the cavernous foyer, her movements precise and businesslike. "Welcome, Mr. Vance," she said, the formality sending a chill down his spine. "Dinner is at 7. He nodded silently, following a housekeeper to his new room. It was opulent, with a king-sized bed and antique furniture, but it felt cold and sterile, like a display in a showroom rather than a place to live. That evening at dinner, Matthew sat at one end of a long, polished dining table, with Eleanor at the other. They were both dressed formally. The food was exquisite, served by silent, almost invisible staff, in a silence that echoed through the grand hall. "I hope you are adjusting," Eleanor said, delicately cutting her filet mignon. "It's different," Matthew answered cautiously. "The house is so large, it would be easy to get lost." Eleanor offered a faint smile. "You will get used to it, or you won't, but you are here, regardless." Matthew felt the sting of her directness. "You haven't told me much about your husband," he ventured. Eleanor paused her cutting, slowly dabbing her lips with a linen napkin before answering. "He was in business, like your father. They even met a few times." Her voice took on a darker edge. "Not all associations end well." Matthew's heart quickened. "What do you mean by that?" Eleanor's gaze was sharp. "There are unresolved issues that sometimes linger," she said, raising her wine glass. "But that is in the past. In time, you will understand why I chose you." Her cryptic words left Matthew with a profound sense of unease. That night, as Matthew walked through the silent corridors of the mansion, the only sound the occasional creak of the hardwood floors, he passed several closed doors. Their polished brass knobs seemed to guard secrets. As the days passed, his anxiety grew. The household staff avoided his gaze and spoke in hushed whispers. He would catch fragments of their conversations. Why him? Does he know? She always has her reasons. He will find out the truth, just like the others. One evening, while passing through the library, Matthew noticed Eleanor's desk was strewn with papers, and a small, ornate key glinted under the lamplight. He glanced around. No one was there. His heart pounded as he picked up the key, feeling its weight and the cool metal against his skin. He wondered if it fit one of the locked doors. After a cautious look down the darkened hallway, he slipped the key into his pocket. Later that night, in his lavish but suffocating bedroom, Matthew turned the key over in his fingers, his mind racing with questions. Chief among them, what was Eleanor hiding, and what was her true reason for choosing him? Driven by a mixture of fear and curiosity, Matthew crept down the hallway late that night. The key in his pocket felt like a heavy reminder of hidden secrets. His heart hammered against his ribs as he reached a door he had noticed before, its intricate handle faintly illuminated by moonlight. He glanced back one last time before turning the key. A soft click echoed in the silent hall, sending a shiver down his spine. Matthew pushed the door open slowly, stepping into a room that seemed untouched by time. A thick layer of dust covered the furniture, and faded wallpaper clung to the walls. On a side table were photographs in tarnished silver frames, images of a younger Eleanor, a man who must have been her late husband, and another couple Matthew didn't recognize. But it was a stack of papers on the desk that immediately drew his attention. Matthew sorted through the papers, his eyes growing wider with each discovery. There were legal documents detailing failed business transactions between Eleanor's husband and his own father. A letter, written in sharp, angry handwriting, accused his father of deceit. "You ruined everything," it read. "You left my family with nothing because of your fraud." His heart stopped when he saw the last document. A marriage license in his and Eleanor's names, dated several weeks before their actual wedding, long before he had even known of her existence. Beside the papers sat an old leather-bound diary. After a moment's hesitation, Matthew opened it. The entries belonged to Eleanor, detailing a meticulously crafted plan to ensnare him in a marriage designed as vengeance for past sins. "I will take everything from him, just as his father took everything from us, one entry read. He is merely a pawn in my game. Suddenly, the door swung open behind him. Did you find what you were looking for? Eleanor's voice, sharp and cold, cut through the darkness. Matthew spun around, his expression a mixture of guilt and shock. Eleanor, You were looking for answers, Eleanor said, stepping into the room, her silhouette framed by the hallway light. Be careful, Matthew. Curiosity can be a dangerous thing. What do you think you're doing? He replied with quiet determination. Why did you marry me? Was all of this just revenge against my father? Eleanor's expression hardened, her usual composure cracking slightly. You are not here to ask questions, Matthew. You are here to do as you are told. See this marriage through, and you will end up far better than you started. Is that not enough? Matthew's hands clenched into fists, anger rising within him. Enough? I've been lied to and manipulated. This isn't a marriage. It's a cage. A cold, thin smile touched Eleanor's lips but did not reach her eyes. A cage, you say? Perhaps you should have been more careful before signing any documents. She stepped closer, her voice laced with scorn. You think you're clever, Matthew, but you're just like your father, oblivious to the damage you cause until it's too late. Matthew stared at her, the weight of his father's legacy pressing down on him. If you hated him so much, why take it out on me? I had nothing to do with what he did to your family. Eleanor held his gaze for a long moment, the silence between them growing heavy. Finally, she turned away. You have no idea what you've walked into, Matthew. Do not meddle in things you don't understand. As she left, the sound of her footsteps echoed down the long hall. Later, lying in his luxurious but suffocating bed, Matthew remained wide awake, his mind in turmoil. Eleanor's words haunted him, but the documents and the diary entry haunted him more. Why would she go to such lengths just to trap him in her scheme? Was it truly just revenge, or was there something deeper? The faint sound of Eleanor's voice cut through his thoughts. He rose from bed and walked silently to her office, pressing his ear against the door to listen. Make sure the transfer is complete, Eleanor commanded sharply. He can't back out now. We are almost out of time. A cold dread washed over Matthew. The depth of the situation was far worse than he had imagined. Alone in the vast library, consumed by fear and confusion, Matthew felt trapped. Eleanor's cryptic statements and the evidence he had uncovered in the locked room made it clear he was in a situation far beyond his control. The once impressive mansion now felt like a gilded prison, its luxury masking a dark and dangerous secret. The next evening, Matthew sought out Mr. Gable, the mansion's head butler, whose calm demeanor seemed to hide a story of its own. Mr. Gable, Matthew began, I need your help. Something is very wrong here. His gaze was direct and unwavering, his hands clasped neatly behind his back. Mr. Vance, I suspected you would come to me eventually. You have discovered things, haven't you? About Mrs. Vance. About everything. After a brief silence, Mr. Gable responded, You are not the first to be taken in by Eleanor's charm and intellect. She is brilliant, resourceful, and relentless in achieving her goals. Be careful. A knot formed in Matthew's stomach. If you know her true nature, why do you stay? Mr. Gable's expression softened, a hint of sadness in his eyes. For some of us, leaving is not an option. Resolutely, Matthew began to plan his escape. He reached out to Alex, a trusted friend from law school, under the pretense of a simple query. Alex, Matthew asked, hypothetically, can a contract be nullified if it was signed under fraudulent misrepresentation or duress? Hypothetically, yes. It depends on the evidence. Why do you ask? Are you in some kind of trouble? Matthew sidestepped the question. Just working on a hypothetical for a class. Thanks, man. In the following days, Matthew secretly searched Eleanor's office whenever she was out, looking for answers about her obsession with his father. One evening, sifting through her desk, he found an envelope addressed to his father. Inside was a scathing letter from Eleanor, accusing Matthew's father of embezzlement, fraud, and deceit that had allegedly destroyed her family's fortune and caused the death of her husband. You left us with nothing, it read. The stress of it killed my husband. I will make sure your family suffers as you made mine suffer. Matthew's stomach turned. It was clear Eleanor's motives weren't just about recovering money. They were rooted in a deep-seated rage and a desire for vengeance, born of years of grief and hatred. He carefully returned the letter, his resolve to act now absolute. He would not be a pawn in Eleanor's game of revenge. That night, he quietly mapped out potential escape routes from the mansion. But Eleanor, ever observant, had sensed his growing agitation. The next morning, she confronted him in the dining room, her formidable presence seeming to suck the air from the room. "You seem preoccupied these last few days, Matthew," she said coolly. Matthew's spoon hovered over his cereal. "I don't know what you mean." Eleanor's smile was icy. "Don't play innocent with me, Matthew. You aren't clever enough to outsmart me. I have broken far more intelligent men than you." Matthew swallowed hard, forcing a calm tone. "Whatever you're accusing me of, I assure you I'm doing nothing wrong." Eleanor leaned forward slightly, her voice like venom. "Betray me, and you will live to regret it," she whispered, before straightening up and leaving the room. Matthew was left at a crossroads. Escape was perilous, but staying meant surrendering to Eleanor's twisted plans, a fate he could not accept. Pacing the library, Matthew's mind was heavy with recent discoveries. The private investigator he had secretly hired confirmed the painful truth. Eleanor's late husband, Harold Vance, had been swindled by Matthew's father in a fraudulent real estate deal that decimated the Vance family fortune. Harold's subsequent fatal heart attack had pushed Eleanor over the edge. Her intention in marrying Matthew wasn't just strategic. It was a meticulous plan to inflict suffering on his family, extending her revenge beyond the grave. Blinded by anger, Matthew wondered why he had to suffer for his father's sins. Yet, as much as he despised Eleanor's methods, he couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow for the pain that had driven her to such extremes. That night, Matthew met secretly with Alex, his law school confidant. Together, they organized the evidence gathered from Eleanor's office and the investigator's report. They found proof of Eleanor's own current shady business dealings, illegal alliances, and falsified financial statements designed to fraudulently rebuild her wealth. "Alex, this is enough to bring her down," Matthew said, his expression firm. "But be careful. If she suspects you know, she could become unpredictable." "She's already caused too much damage," Alex replied. "It's time to stop her." The next day, Matthew sat in the vast living room, the damning evidence tucked into his briefcase. Eleanor entered with her usual calm demeanor. He stood to face her. "Matthew, we need to talk," she began. "We certainly do," he replied, his tone sharp. Eleanor's eyebrow arched slightly. "And what is so important?" Clutching the documents, Matthew answered, "I know everything. About my father, about Harold, and about your plans to rebuild your fortune." For a fleeting moment, Eleanor's mask of composure fell. Her eyes darted to the papers in his hand. "You've been digging again, haven't you? Do you have any idea the damage your father did to my family?" Matthew stepped closer, his voice rising. "Yes, I do. But what about the innocent people caught in the middle? What about my innocence in all of this?" Eleanor's expression hardened. "Was it just for my family to lose everything? For my husband to die from stress and grief while your father grew rich?" "Don't lecture me about justice, Matthew." He held out the evidence, his hands trembling. "Revenge won't bring him back, Eleanor, and it won't fix the past. You've let vengeance consume you, hurting innocent people and destroying lives. When does it stop?" For a second, Eleanor's posture seemed to soften, and Matthew thought he saw a flicker of regret in her eyes. Softening his own voice, he said, "You remind me of Harold. His determination, his strength. I never thought I could feel anything for you. But here we are." Eleanor was taken aback by his confession. Matthew paused, hesitating. "If what you feel is real, then stop this. End it, before everything is destroyed for good." But before Eleanor could answer, the sound of car tires crunched on the gravel driveway. Moments later, plainclothes police officers entered the room, with Alex just behind them. "Eleanor Vance," an officer announced. "You're under arrest. We have a warrant for multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy." As Eleanor's expression turned to stone, she looked at Matthew in disbelief. "You called them." Matthew met her gaze directly, his own calm. "I had no other choice." As the officers led Eleanor away, she paused for a moment and looked back at Matthew. "You think you've won, Matthew. But remember, the cycle of revenge is a hard one to break. Don't let it consume you, too." Watching her go, Matthew felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. He had found the truth and secured his future, But Eleanor's final words echoed in his mind, casting a long shadow. Could the wounds of their intertwined histories ever truly heal? The sharp sound of the judge's gavel echoed through the courtroom, signaling the end of Eleanor Vance's trial. From the back of the room, Matthew watched quietly as the once powerful woman he had unwittingly married faced the consequences of her schemes. His testimony, crucial in securing her a reduced sentence, had been offered not out of pity, but from a deeper understanding of their tangled story. As Eleanor glanced back, their eyes met. Her once cold, calculating gaze was gone. Instead, she gave him a slight, almost regretful nod. Afterward, Matthew was called back to the mansion one last time. The once intimidating structure now seemed empty and hollow. As a final act, Eleanor had instructed her estate lawyer to bequeath the mansion to him. The lawyer handed Matthew a letter written by Eleanor. Matthew, it read, "My actions were never about wealth, but about a search for closure. Harold deserved justice, but I lost my way. You reminded me of the possibility of moving forward. This mansion no longer represents my pain. It holds the potential for a new beginning. I entrust it to you. It felt only right to sell the mansion. It had been a prison for them both. The proceeds paid off his family's debts, freeing his mother from the long shadow of his father's mistakes. With the remaining money, Matthew established a scholarship in Harold Vance's memory, a tribute to the victim caught in their family's crossfire. Matthew's return to law school was marked by a renewed sense of purpose. He dedicated his legal knowledge to helping those denied justice, much like Eleanor had once been. One autumn day, he received another letter from Eleanor. He recognized the familiar handwriting immediately. Sitting on a campus bench, he opened it. "Matthew, reflection has shown me that my revenge became its own kind of prison. Your unexpected decency, despite my failings, taught me that forgiveness is a form of strength, not weakness. Thank you for rising above the bitterness of the world and showing me the power of breaking the cycles we inherit. May you find the happiness I never could." As he absorbed her words, Matthew carefully folded the letter and placed it in his pocket, a newfound peace settling over him. A year after Eleanor's arrest, at a simple ceremony for the scholarship's beneficiaries, Matthew stood before a plaque honoring the Harold Vance Scholarship Fund for Second Chances. In his speech, his voice was filled with sincerity. "This fund is more than just financial aid," he said. "It's about giving an opportunity to those who might be overlooked, turning challenges into catalysts for growth." After the ceremony, he stood alone for a moment, reflecting on the tumultuous events of the past year. His life had been irrevocably altered, but he felt he was finally on the right path. Matthew left the ceremony with a slight smile, looking up at the clear sky, feeling the profound relief that comes from letting go of the burdens of the past. In his pocket, Eleanor's letter remained a silent testament to the hard-won lessons they had both learned about redemption, justice, and the transformative power of forgiveness to change a life.